This is a quick look at my man cave and where I'm at today with respect to how the pieces are coming together. It'll be a log cabin style, and it'll have a technology end, which is the green screen that you see coming up here. This is my first video in my man cave as such with me, although I have done a few others. And so this is just an introductory to some exciting things and times. Hello friends, family, followers, and guests. Had an interesting experience this morning. As a Latter-day Saint, a Mormon, we wear underclothes that we believe have a spiritual value. So I went in this morning to get a change, and lo and behold, I found this on my garments. And this is a Caltech. And of course it folds open if I can get it to do it. Now that gives me pause to think about a number of things. We have the recent shootings, and of course my heart goes out to all of those people, all of them. The families and the friends. I've watched, especially the Democrats, but the Republicans as well, the swamp, if you will, all politically posturing and trying to make money off from it, trying to buy votes, a number of those kinds of things. I've listened to pundit after pundit across the spectrum of news channels, NBC, ABC, CNN, and so on, Fox, especially Fox. If there's any of them worthy of the title of news channel, it would be Fox. And that caused me to think about all the BS that's going on with gun control. We're going to control guns, control guns, control guns. I'm going to talk about the reality of controlling guns. First, it isn't going to happen. There's no way that it's possible. We will wind up like Czechoslovakia in the 1930s with the Gestapo coming around, stealing our guns, and they won't get the ones that are hidden. They won't get the ammunition. I have a few guns, and I'll have some on the wall out here. I have a 1795 musket, and various muzzle loaders, a bunch of them, some ARs, a Ruger Ranch. Those are some of the rifles. I got more, and I don't need to go too far into that. So this gun setting where it was setting probably was not a gun from God on my garments. My guess would be that it belongs to one of my sons, and it found its way there. So I have the answer. I also have a hair in my mouth. But I have the answer. And nobody wants to look at the real answer. These lunatics, they go after what they call soft targets. Places where there will be no guns. There will be nobody to shoot back. Places like school grounds with kids and teachers who are dumb enough and stupid enough to throw themselves in front of a child so that they can be killed as well as the child. And administrators that say, well, lock the door. Yeah, right, if you get the time to do it. So I carry concealed. I carry all the time. I have at least one gun and sometimes two in each of my vehicles. I normally have one of these two on me. North American Arms, little 22 Magnum. At close-up distance has the same stopping power as a 38 Special. Both of them fit well, they hide well. As an FYI, they're no good unless they have ammunition in it. Right now I have target ammunition, but I have stopping power ammunition I use as well. Would I seek out a bad guy in a active shooter situation? Probably not. I'd probably hide as much as I can, protect myself and protect my family. With that said, I've seen the cartoon joke of the guy that comes into the restaurant and he says, this is a stick-up. And what he doesn't know is that the restaurant is a watering hole for the police. And all of a sudden there's a bunch of guns pointing at him. In today's world, it's almost impossible to stop some of the insanity. With that said, that means that an insane person will still search out the soft targets to make whatever point they think they're making. But what if there were no soft targets? What if places like Chuck E. Cheese, who has an anti-gun policy, you're not supposed to go in there, even though it's a place for kids, soft target, where somebody could go. But those kinds of places, or schools, where you could be reasonably certain that every target, if they're old enough and responsible enough, would have a gun and be prepared to use it. The concept of soft targets would cease to exist. What if in Walmart, every adult in there had a gun? Would there be accidents? Would you have people who are not bad guys getting shot by good guys? The answer is, of course, that would happen. But the number of bad guys would be substantially reduced without this stupid concept of putting them in prison for life. What about the guy who murders one of your children or one of your grandchildren, or maybe several of them? The right to life has been denied those people that are murdered, and they're going to put him in prison for life. They're going to feed him, and you are going to pay for it. In some cases, he's going to get all kinds of stuff in life. What he won't have is the opposite sex, but in prison, from what I've heard, you don't need that. Let's do away with soft targets. Let's do away with the concept of you have to have a concealed license, because only honest, law-abiding citizens get concealed licenses. I've studied this a lot. I read a lot. I wrote the book, Oregon Concealed, what you need to know to carry a concealed handgun in Oregon. I'm almost done with another book. I'm not sure I'm going to finish it. What you need to know on a national level. So I think about this and I pause. I ramble a little bit here because I'm collecting my thoughts on this for the first time for real. But it seems to me that because the bad guys don't have concealed licenses, why do you, the politicians, burden the public with having to have a concealed license? How hokey is a background check? About a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, I was living in Oregon. And one of the things that made me decide to move is I was living just outside of Eugene, Oregon, in Lane County. A homeless encampment was set up near my property. I was a little bit out in the country. And I came home one day to find several things stolen. Among the things stolen from my then man cave were 3 pistols. I reported that to the Lane County Sheriff, and they didn't care enough to get the serial numbers of those pistols, or to come out and do an investigation, or check the homeless camp. I went out in my backyard, I have a range there, and I shot a whole bunch with one of the AR-15s into a tree, knowing that they would hear the sound. They were only about 70 yards away across the fence. They set up right beside the fence on my property near where I shoot. And then I put a gun on my hip and I walked through the camp and I looked at the people. They look at me and they look at a gun and I said, which son of a bitch here stole my pistols? And then I went back and I started shooting again. Nobody confronted me. I didn't draw it out. I didn't point it at anybody. Just as an FYI, I actually had 2 pistols, one on my hip and one on my back. The one on my hip was a Glock 17, 15 rounds. The one on my back was a Kimber 45. The next morning, the homeless camp had dissipated. So no action by the sheriff. There's 3 guns out there. One of them was registered, registered isn't the right word, but I signed for it, so it's on the record somewhere. The other 2 were not. There's 3 guns out there that now are in the potential element of criminals. I had a lathe and a milling machine. I could do precision work before my eyes started going bad. That's why I sold them. Anybody can make a gun. I have a friend who makes his own ammunition, including the brass cases and the bullets for it, because he doesn't want the government knowing what he's got. He's got tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition. He's got 3 and 3. He's got 6 high-powered rifles besides the AR-15s. The list goes on and on and on. The bottom line is, this is about soft targets. And the political failures. What kind of gun control can you possibly imagine that will be effective against criminals who steal guns, a government who gives guns away, the Fast and the Furious, remember that? And a criminal element that makes their own guns. I ask you, in all seriousness, go on the net and look up zip guns, Z-I-P. It is so easy to make a gun, it's unreal. With that said, I think we should do away with soft targets. Corporations another pet peeve. Corporations don't have the right to make policies or rules in violation of the Second Amendment or the gun rights of people in the states they belong in. And the reason they don't have that is because they're artificial creations. They are not real. They do not exist. They do not breathe. They do not have blood. They're just an entity for the purposes of whatever, but ultimately it's almost always business. That's all a corporation is. They're vested with that power by either the state or the feds, and neither the state nor the feds can give them a power that the state nor the feds have. And so if the state and the feds are restricted by their constitutions, and they are, then so are the corporations. Corporations cannot create gun control policies for within their corporation. It's that simple. I'm on a rant of sorts, even though I'm not all carried away. I'm frustrated internally. My heart goes out to these people. I think about, what if the bad guy showed up at Walmart, and let's say of that 3,000 people that were there, half of them, 1,500, had guns. Think about that. Would innocent people get killed? Possibly, maybe even probably, but not on the scale that had happened in El Paso. All of a sudden, because we're in a political cycle, the politicians get all excited and carried away with this whole thing, and we're going to do this, we're politicians. We're going to make laws. We're going to make things better. That's bull, and we all know it. It's nice to have should in our hearts. Things should be better. This should happen, that should happen. But we don't have a right to project that should onto other people. That belongs to us, and it's up to us internally. Where I'm going with this is Baltimore has been in the news recently. For those of you who might not know, they just had their 200th murder in Baltimore, and they're slightly over half the way through the year. There are cities that have as many deaths in a weekend as what happened in El Paso, Texas. All over, and none of the media reports it. None of them. Not for those who like to turn to Fox as a news outlet, and they do provide news. Actually, they're not like CNN or MSN. Once in a while, Fox too has their pundits, and I ramble. But the bottom line is, why don't we hear about that on a regular basis, on a broader scale? And the answer is because almost all the big cities, one of the answers, there's many answers, is that almost all the big cities are run by Democrats. And the news media, that's where they go because they can sell papers, they can sell news, they can sell their digital outlets. And for them, it's all about the money. Never make the mistake. For those of you who like Fox, and I have a lot of conservatives on my friends list, for those of you who like Fox, you conservatives are their outlet. They pander to you for the buck. And you listen carefully to what they say and which ones are actually providing news. At least Fox is open about it. Obviously, I enjoy Fox. Anyway, as things happen, I challenge you to go to Google and ask how many deaths in Baltimore so far this year? How many deaths in Los Angeles? How many deaths in Detroit? And the list goes on and on and on. And this thing that happened in El Paso, spit spot. The only reason it's important in the broad national scheme of things is for the current, I don't know what you call them, den of politicians that are trying to run for office. I would encourage each and every one of you, don't be a soft target yourself. Don't let your family be a soft target, not self-target, a soft target. Don't let your friends and neighbors be a soft target. One of the things I teach in my book, In Oregon Concealed, and we taught in gun classes, and we've taught tens of thousands of people what they need to know to carry concealed. One of the mantras we preach is practice, practice, practice. I do not believe it's constitutionally valid to require someone who wants to carry a gun to have training. That training and level is up to them constitutionally. Notwithstanding that, common sense is practice, practice, practice. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot pulling the gun out or shoot somebody standing beside you. My dad wanted to be a fast draw artist, and he had a .22, and he pulled it out and had an unplanned discharge. That's what we call them when it goes off and you didn't intend for it to go off in shooting circles, an unplanned discharge. He had new boots, and as only the grace of God would have it, that ball went through the toe of his right boot, and it went in between that little space in between your little toe and your big toe. It went between those and didn't even give him a scratch. But you can't count on being that kind of lucky. In another day and another story, I'll tell you about how my brother shot my dad. But that's not for today. So I've spent way too much time. The bottom line is there are soft targets. Each and every one of us is a soft target in that we're made of flesh and bone, and a bullet going through us will go through us if that's the direction. But we don't have to be a soft target in the political context of a soft target. We can carry guns and we can exercise self-defense. The other thing we can do is, instead of paying for these murdering bastards, these psychopaths, forever, and have that burden in the form of prisons and taking care of them, we can put them away. Put them away means turn them back into the dirt they came from. With that said, I hope and I pray that as a nation we can come to common sense and understand that should is not an imperative. And self-defense will keep us from being a soft target.